Marcus Johnson checked his watch as he walked through the busy airport. It was Friday evening, and after a week of meetings in New York, he was ready to go home to Chicago. As the CEO of TechFusion, a growing company worth millions, Marcus had a lot on his mind. His company had just signed 3 new big clients, and he needed to plan how to handle the new work. The airport was crowded with weekend travelers. People rushed past, pulling bags and checking phones. Marcus moved with calm purpose, his expensive suit and quiet confidence making him stand out. At 42, he had worked hard for everything he had. Growing up in a poor neighborhood, no one expected him to become the boss of his own company. But here he was. Marcus reached the gate just as boarding started for first class. He waited in line with other business people, noticing he was the only black person in the first-class line. This was nothing new to him. In his 15 years in the business world, he had often been the only person of color in important meetings and fancy events. First-class passengers, we are now boarding, called the gate agent, a thin woman with a tight smile who barely looked at Marcus as she scanned his ticket. Marcus nodded politely and walked down the jet bridge to the plane. On board, a flight attendant named Karen greeted passengers with a big smile. "Welcome aboard. Right this way," she said warmly to the white businessman in front of Marcus. When Marcus stepped up, her smile dropped. She looked at his first-class ticket with surprise, then pointed to his seat without a word. Marcus found his seat, 2A, a window seat in the second row. He put his laptop bag under the seat in front and settled in. The leather seat felt good after his long day. He watched as other first-class passengers boarded. The flight attendant, Karen, helped them put bags away and offered to hang up coats. She asked if they wanted a drink before takeoff. But when she passed Marcus, she looked straight through him as if he wasn't there. Marcus wasn't surprised. This kind of thing had happened before. He took out his phone and checked his emails while he waited. The businessman next to him in 2B, an older white man named Richard Thompson, according to the tag on his briefcase, was already enjoying a glass of champagne. After all passengers were on board, Karen walked through first class offering drinks again. She stopped for every passenger, smiling and chatting. When she reached Marcus's row, she leaned across him to ask Richard if he wanted another drink, but said nothing to Marcus. "Excuse me," Marcus said politely. "Could I get some water, please?" Karen turned to him with cold eyes. "Coach service will begin after takeoff," she said in a flat voice. "I'm in first class," Marcus said, keeping his voice calm and professional. Karen's face showed surprise, then embarrassment, then something harder. "Oh, I'll get that for you," she said, walking away without apologizing. Richard looked uncomfortable next to him. "These airlines," he muttered. "Service isn't what it used to be." Marcus just nodded. He knew this wasn't about general bad service. This was something he had faced his whole life. People assuming he didn't belong in fancy places, expensive restaurants, or first-class cabins. Karen returned with a plastic cup of water, placing it on his armrest without a word, while the other passengers had been served in real glasses. A few minutes later, Marcus overheard her talking to another flight attendant. "Some people just don't know their place these days," she whispered, loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. Several people chuckled. Marcus felt a familiar burn in his chest, a mix of anger, hurt, and tiredness. Usually, he let these things go. As a successful black man, he had learned to pick his battles. But something felt different this time. Maybe it was because he was tired. Maybe it was because he had worked too hard to be treated this way. Or maybe it was just time for things to change. He took out his phone and opened the Notes app. This time, he would not stay quiet. The flight to Chicago took 3 hours. During that time, Marcus watched carefully how the flight crew treated other passengers. First-class travelers received warm smiles, friendly chats, and quick service. The flight attendant, Karen, checked on them often. "Is everything all right, sir?" she would ask others. "Can I get you anything else, Mom?" But for Marcus, there was only silence and cold looks. When meals were served, the other passengers got their food first. When Marcus's meal finally came, his chicken was cold and his vegetables were hard. He asked for a hot dinner, but Karen said, "That's all we have left." Just 5 minutes later, she gave the white businessman next to him a steaming hot meal when he complained about his food. Marcus took pictures with his phone. He wrote down everything that happened, including times and names. He had learned long ago to keep good records when he faced unfair treatment. As a black businessman, he knew his word alone was often not enough. By the time the plane landed in Chicago, Marcus had filled 3 pages of notes on his phone. He felt both sad and angry. Sad because in 2025, these things still happened. Angry because no one should be treated this way, no matter who they were. While waiting for his luggage, Marcus looked up Air Global's customer service information. The airline had a special email for premium passenger concerns. He would start there. Marcus believed in giving companies a chance to fix their mistakes. At home, Marcus sat at his kitchen table with a cup of tea. His house was quiet and peaceful, with large windows that looked out over the city. On his walls hung artwork by black artists, pictures of his family, and his many business awards. This home was his safe place, bought with money he had earned through hard work and smart choices. He opened his laptop and began writing his email to Air Global. He was careful to stick to the facts. He wrote about how the flight attendant ignored him while serving others. He wrote about the cold food and poor service. He wrote about the whispered comments and laughs. He attached the pictures he had taken and ended his email by asking for a response within 5 business days. After sending the email, Marcus called his friend David, who was also a black business owner. "It happened again," Marcus said, his voice tired. "On a plane?" David asked. "Yes. First class, too." David sighed. "I'm sorry, man. What are you going to do?" "I sent an email to customer service. We'll see what happens." "You know how these things go," David said. "They'll say sorry and offer you some miles." Marcus nodded, even though David couldn't see him. "Probably. But maybe this time will be different." After hanging up, Marcus couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about all the times he had faced discrimination. In college, people assumed he was there because of sports, not his perfect grades. At his first job, coworkers were surprised by his ideas and skills. Even after starting his own company, some clients would look past him to speak with his white employees. Marcus had always handled these situations with quiet dignity. "Don't let them see you angry," his father had taught him. "Prove them wrong with success." This advice had served him well in building his business, but was staying quiet really helping change things? What about all the other black travelers who faced the same treatment but didn't have his resources or position? By morning, Marcus had made a decision. If Air Global didn't respond properly, he would not stay quiet this time. He had the money, the connections, and the knowledge to do more, and he would use them all if needed. 5 days passed. Then 10. Air Global never replied to his email. Not even an automatic message saying they had received it. The silence felt like another insult. Marcus opened his laptop again. This time, he wasn't writing to customer service. He was going to share his story with the world. Marcus sat at his desk in his home office. Morning light came through the windows as he looked at his computer screen. He was about to do something he had never done before. Share his personal experience with discrimination publicly. As the CEO of TechFusion, Marcus was used to being careful with his words. His company had over 200 employees and many important clients. Anything he said online could affect his business. But after 10 days of silence from Air Global, he felt he had no choice. "This is not just about me," he said to himself. "This is about every person who has been treated unfairly because of how they look." Marcus opened his social media accounts. He had a large following because of his success in tech. He took a deep breath and began typing his story. He described everything that had happened on the flight in clear, simple language. He added the pictures he had taken. He mentioned that he had tried to contact Air Global's customer service with no response. I am sharing this not to get special treatment, he wrote at the end. I am sharing this because if this happens to me, a CEO who can afford first-class tickets, imagine what happens to others who don't have my resources or platform. This must change. Marcus read his post 3 times to make sure everything was accurate. Then he clicked post. He closed his laptop and went to make coffee, trying not to think about what might happen next. What happened next was beyond anything Marcus had expected. By lunchtime, his post had been shared 5,000 times. By dinner, the number was over 50,000. Comments poured in from people sharing their own stories of discrimination on Air Global flights. Many described experiences almost exactly like his. This happened to me last month. I thought I was the only one. Thank you for speaking up. Marcus's phone began ringing with calls from reporters. News websites wanted to interview him. TV shows wanted him to appear. His story was becoming national news. By the next morning, Air Global finally responded, not to Marcus directly, but with a public statement. Air Global is sorry to hear about Mr. Johnson's experience. We take all customer complaints seriously. This appears to be an isolated incident that does not reflect our company values. We are looking into the matter. Marcus read the statement and shook his head. Isolated incident. There are hundreds of similar stories in the comments on my post alone. His assistant called to tell them that his email inbox was full of messages. Among them was an email from a woman named Jasmine Taylor. Dear Mr. Johnson, the email read, I worked as a flight attendant for Air Global for 8 years. What you experienced is not an isolated incident. The company has unwritten rules about how to treat different passengers. I have documents that prove this. Would you be willing to talk? Marcus immediately called Jasmine. She told him that Air Global had training materials that encouraged staff to give extra attention to passengers who appear to match our premium customer profile. While this wasn't written in racist language, in practice it meant treating white passengers better than others. They fired me when I complained about it, Jasmine said. I'm not the only one. By the end of the day, Marcus had spoken with 5 former Air Global employees. All had similar stories. 2 had saved copies of company emails and training materials. Marcus realized his social media post had opened a door that couldn't be closed again. People were finally speaking up about a problem that had been hidden for years. That evening, Marcus received a different kind of call from Sarah Chen, a famous civil rights lawyer. Mr. Johnson, she said, I've been following your story. I think you have a case against Air Global, not just for you, but possibly a class action lawsuit for many people. Would you be interested in discussing this further? Marcus looked at the stack of notes on his desk, all the stories people had shared with him that day. He thought about how many people had faced the same treatment for years in silence. Yes, he told Sarah. I would definitely be interested. The next week was the busiest of Marcus's life. His office at Tech Fusion became the center of what people were now calling the Air Global movement. Every day, more people contacted him with stories about bad treatment on the airline. Sarah Chen, the civil rights lawyer, set up a meeting at Marcus's office. She brought 3 other lawyers with her. They sat around the big table in the meeting room, surrounded by stacks of papers, all stories from people who had faced discrimination on Air Global flights. We have over 700 complaints now, Sarah said, tapping her finger on the top file. Many with photo or video proof. This is one of the strongest cases I've ever seen. Marcus nodded. So what happens next? We file a class action lawsuit, Sarah explained. That means we sue on behalf of all these people at once. We will ask for money for everyone who was hurt, but more importantly, we will demand that Air Global change how they do business. Marcus thought about it. A lawsuit would take time and energy. It might hurt his own business. Some clients might not want to work with someone involved in a big public fight. If we do this, he said slowly, I want to be clear about one thing. This isn't just about money. This is about changing how people are treated. Sarah smiled. That's exactly why I wanted to work with you, Mr. Johnson. You understand what really matters." While the lawyers prepared the lawsuit, Marcus had another idea. He called a meeting with his tech team at Tech Fusion. "I want to build a website," he told them. "A place where people can share their stories of discrimination on any airline, not just Air Global. We'll call it Equal Skies." His team got to work right away. In just 3 days, they built a simple but powerful website where people could upload their stories, pictures, and videos. They could also sign up to join the lawsuit if they had flown on Air Global. The website went live on Monday morning. By Monday night, it had crashed 3 times because so many people were using it. Marcus's tech team worked all night to make it stronger. On Tuesday, Air Global finally realized they had a serious problem. The company's CEO, William Parker, called a press conference. He stood at a podium in front of Air Global's blue and white logo. Air Global has always been committed to treating all passengers with respect, Parker said, his face serious. "The recent social media posts do not show the real Air Global. We believe this is being blown out of proportion by people looking for attention." This was a big mistake. Within hours, #TheRealAirGlobal was trending online. People shared more stories and pictures. Former employees shared more evidence. The Equal Skies website crashed again from all the traffic. Marcus was invited to appear on morning news shows. He was careful to stay calm and stick to facts. "I'm not doing this for attention," he said on national morning news. "I'm a successful CEO with a good life. I'm doing this because no one should be treated differently because of their skin color, not on planes, not anywhere." People across the country were talking about Marcus's story. Air Global's stock price began to drop as passengers chose other airlines. Big companies that had contracts with Air Global for business travel started asking questions. Marcus received an unexpected call from Janet Moore, one of Air Global's board members. "Mr. Johnson," she said, her voice quiet, "I want to meet with you privately. There are things happening inside the company that you should know about. Things that could help your case." "Why would you help me?" Marcus asked, surprised. "Because you're right," Janet said simply, "and because some of us have been trying to fix these problems from the inside for years. Maybe now we finally can." Marcus agreed to meet her the next day at a quiet coffee shop. He didn't know it yet, but this meeting would change everything. The coffee shop was small and quiet, away from busy streets. Marcus arrived 10 minutes early and chose a table in the back corner. He ordered a black coffee and waited, watching the door. At exactly 2:00 p.m., a woman in a gray suit walked in. Janet Moore was in her 50s, with short silver hair and sharp eyes. She looked around quickly, spotted Marcus, and walked over. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, sitting down. She didn't smile. "I'm taking a big risk being here." "I understand," Marcus said. "What did you want to tell me?" Janet pulled a small drive from her purse and placed it on the table. "This contains emails from the last 5 years. Internal company emails that show Air Global has known about discrimination problems for a long time." Marcus looked at the small drive. "Why are you giving me this?" Janet's face showed anger and sadness. "I've been on the board for 7 years. For 5 of those years, I've been reporting these problems, filing complaints, showing evidence. No one listened." She took a deep breath. "I'm tired of being ignored. And what happened to you was wrong." Marcus picked up the drive. "What's on here exactly?" "Everything," Janet said. "Reports about complaints from Black, Hispanic, and Middle Eastern passengers. Training materials that tell staff to give special attention to certain types of customers. Emails where executives talk about ignoring discrimination reports to avoid setting a precedent." Marcus felt his heart beat faster. This was exactly what they needed for the lawsuit. "This will help a lot of people," he said. Janet nodded. "There's more. William Parker, our CEO, has created a terrible company culture. People who speak up get fired or pushed out. That's why so many ex-employees are contacting you now. They've been waiting for a chance to tell the truth." They talked for another hour. Janet explained how the company had hidden problems for years, how they had special rules for dealing with complaints from people of color, how they tracked which employees reported discrimination issues and labeled them as troublemakers. As they were about to leave, Janet said one more thing. There's a board meeting next Friday. Parker doesn't know I'm here. He thinks he has everyone's support, but he doesn't. She handed Marcus her card. Call me after you look at those files. Marcus went straight to Sarah Chen's office. The legal team worked all night, looking through the files Janet had given them. By morning, they had found over 200 emails that proved Air Global knew about the discrimination, but chose to ignore it. This changes everything, Sarah said, her eyes wide. This isn't just about individual bad employees. This is about company policy. The whole system was designed to treat people differently based on race. The next day, they updated their lawsuit with the new evidence. News of the emails leaked to the press. Air Global's stock dropped 15% in one day. William Parker called another press conference. He looked tired and angry. These supposed leaked emails are taken out of context, he said. Air Global has always treated all passengers fairly. This is nothing but a smear campaign led by someone who wants money and attention. That evening, Marcus appeared on the most-watched news show in the country. The host asked him about Parker's claims. This isn't about money or attention, Marcus said calmly. It's about people being treated with basic respect. These emails show that Air Global has been lying. They knew about these problems for years and did nothing. The show then played clips from interviews with 20 different people who had faced discrimination on Air Global flights. People of all ages, from all walks of life, all with similar stories. By the end of the week, 6 major companies had canceled their business contracts with Air Global. #BoycottAirGlobal was trending online. The airline began canceling flights because many staff members called in sick, saying they didn't want to work for a company that treated people this way. Janet Moore called Marcus again. The emergency board meeting has been moved up, she said. It's happening tomorrow. Things are about to change. The Air Global emergency board meeting lasted for 12 hours. Janet texted Marcus updates throughout the day. Parker is fighting hard. 4 board members want him out. 3 are still on his side. Still talking. Very tense. Marcus waited in his office, unable to focus on anything else. Sarah Chen and her legal team were in the next room, preparing for court. The case was set to start in 2 weeks, but with each passing day, more people joined the lawsuit. They now had over 1,200 plaintiffs, all people who said they had faced discrimination on Air Global flights. At 9:30 p.m., Marcus's phone rang. It was Janet. It's done, she said, her voice tired but happy. Parker is out. The board voted 7-3 to remove him as CEO. Marcus sat up straight. What happens now? We've named Thomas Wilson as interim CEO. He's been with the company for 20 years and has a good reputation. He wants to meet with you tomorrow. With me. Why? Because he wants to fix this, Janet said. Really fix it, not just put a Band-Aid on it. The next morning, Marcus met Thomas Wilson at Air Global's headquarters. Thomas was in his 60s, with kind eyes and a serious manner. Janet Moore was there too, along with 3 other board members. Mr. Johnson, Thomas began. First, I want to apologize personally for what happened to you on our flight. It was wrong, and it should never have happened. Marcus nodded, waiting to hear more. Second, I want to be clear. What happened to you wasn't an isolated incident. We've had a problem in this company for many years. The emails you received show that clearly. Thomas handed Marcus a folder. Inside was a press release, ready to go out that afternoon. Air Global admits to systemic discrimination issues and commits to complete company overhaul, the headline read. Marcus looked up, surprised. You're admitting everything. Thomas nodded. It's the only way forward. We can't fix a problem if we keep pretending it doesn't exist. He explained their plan. Air Global would completely change its training programs. They would create a new position, Chief Equality Officer, with real power to make changes. They would hire an outside company to review all their policies, and they would offer a settlement to everyone in the lawsuit. "We want to work with you," Thomas said, "not fight against you." Marcus was cautious. "These sound like good steps, but why should I trust you?" Janet spoke up. "Because we're putting our money where our mouth is." She handed Marcus another paper. "This is our settlement offer." Marcus read it carefully. Air Global was offering $50 million to be split among all the plaintiffs. They were also committing $100 million to create a new industry watchdog organization that would monitor all airlines for discrimination issues. "We want you to help lead this new organization," Thomas said. "Your voice and experience would be valuable." Marcus took a deep breath. This was far more than he had expected. "I need to discuss this with the legal team and the other plaintiffs." "Of course," Thomas said. "Take your time." Back at his office, Marcus showed the offer to Sarah Chen. She read it quickly, her eyes growing wider. "This is actually good," she said, sounding surprised. "Very good, in fact. They're not just throwing money at the problem. They're making real structural changes." "Can we trust them?" Marcus asked. "With Janet and the new board members watching, maybe." Sarah thought for a moment. "We should add some conditions. Regular public reports on their progress. Independent audits. A seat on their board for someone from our side." Marcus nodded. "Draft a response. Let's see if they're really serious." That night, as he drove home, Marcus thought about how far things had come. What started as one bad experience on a flight had turned into a movement that was changing an entire company. And maybe, just maybe, it would help change an entire industry. His phone buzzed with a text from Janet. "Board approved all your conditions. This is really happening." 3 days later, Marcus stood in a large conference room at the Hilton Hotel. The room was packed with people, all plaintiffs in the lawsuit against Air Global. Some had traveled from across the country to be there. They were young and old, from different backgrounds, but all had faced the same unfair treatment. Sarah Chen stood beside Marcus at the front of the room. On a big screen behind them, the details of Air Global's settlement offer were displayed. "As you can see," Sarah explained, "Air Global has agreed to all our conditions. They will pay $50 million to be divided among everyone in this lawsuit. But more importantly, they have committed to real change." A man in the back raised his hand. "How do we know they'll actually do what they promise?" "Companies make big promises all the time when they're in trouble." It was a good question. Marcus stepped forward. "That's why we added special conditions," he said. "First, they must create a new board position filled by someone from our group. Janet Moore has nominated Dr. Michael Reynolds, who is here with us today." A tall man with glasses stood up. Dr. Reynolds was a respected professor who studied discrimination in businesses. He had joined the lawsuit after being treated poorly on an Air Global flight last year. "Second," Marcus continued, "Air Global must share reports every 3 months showing what changes they've made. These reports will be public so everyone can see them. Third, they will fund a new organization called the Airline Equality Group with $100 million. This group will watch not just Air Global, but all airlines to make sure they treat everyone fairly." People in the room began to nod. These were strong conditions. A woman near the front spoke up. "I don't care about the money. I just want to know this won't happen to my children when they fly." "That's exactly right," Marcus said. "This isn't about the money. It's about making real change." For the next 2 hours, they answered questions and discussed the settlement. At the end, they took a vote. The result was clear. 1,189 voted to accept the settlement. Only 23 voted against it. The next day, Marcus and Sarah met with Thomas Wilson and the Air Global legal team to sign the final agreement. Cameras flashed as they shook hands. It was front-page news across the country. "This is just the beginning," Thomas said. We have a lot of work to do. Over the next few weeks, changes at Air Global happened quickly. William Parker, the former CEO, left with no bonus pay. Very unusual for a company of this size. 5 other top executives who had ignored discrimination complaints were also asked to leave. The new Chief Equality Officer, Dr. Amara Washington, started work right away. Her first job was to review all training materials and completely rewrite them. Old training had told staff to give special attention to certain types of customers. New training made it clear all passengers deserve the same high level of service. Flight attendants, gate agents, and other staff began attending new training sessions. Some complained at first, but most were happy to see the company making real changes. Marcus remained busy. He helped set up the new Airline Equality Group and agreed to serve on its board of directors. The organization rented office space and hired staff to begin monitoring all major airlines. News of what happened at Air Global spread through the industry. 2 other large airlines, worried about similar lawsuits, announced their own reviews of company policies. They reached out to Marcus for advice on what changes to make. One evening, as Marcus was leaving his office, he found a letter on his desk. It was from Karen, the flight attendant who had treated him so poorly on that flight 2 months ago. With shaking hands, he opened it. "Dear Mr. Johnson," it began, "I've been required to take the new training at Air Global. At first, I was angry about it, but now I understand what I did wrong. I'm truly sorry for how I treated you." Marcus read Karen's letter several times. Her words seemed honest. "I was raised with certain ideas about people," she wrote. "I never questioned those ideas until now. The new training made me look at myself in a way I never had before. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know that you have changed at least one person's way of thinking." Marcus didn't know how to feel. Part of him was still angry about how she had treated him. Another part was moved that she had taken time to write this letter. After thinking about it overnight, he wrote back a short note. "Thank you for your honesty. Change is never easy, but it's always possible. I wish you well in your journey forward." 6 months passed. The changes at Air Global continued. Dr. Amara Washington, the new Chief Equality Officer, had become a powerful voice in the company. All staff now went through completely new training. Hidden cameras were used to test how employees treated different passengers, and those who showed bias were required to take extra training. The first quarterly report was released to the public. It showed that complaints about discrimination had dropped by 63%. Customer satisfaction scores were up across the board. The company's stock price, which had fallen sharply during the crisis, was slowly climbing back up. Marcus was invited to speak at a conference about business ethics. Standing on stage in front of 500 business leaders, he told his story. He explained how one bad experience had led to uncovering a system-wide problem. "The lesson here isn't about airlines," Marcus said. "It's about what happens when companies ignore problems instead of fixing them." 1 complaint became 2. 2 became 10. 10 became 1,000. And eventually, that 1,000 voices became too loud to ignore. People in the audience nodded. Many were taking notes. The second lesson is that fixing these problems isn't just the right thing to do. It's also good business. Air Global is now doing better than before this all happened. Their customer satisfaction scores are at an all-time high. Their employees are happier. Even their stock price is recovering. After the speech, several CEOs approached Marcus. They wanted advice on reviewing their own companies for similar problems. Marcus put them in touch with the Airline Equality Group, which had expanded to offer consulting services to businesses in all industries. One day, Marcus received a call from Thomas Wilson, Air Global's interim CEO. "We've been looking for a permanent CEO," Thomas said. "The board has asked me to talk to you about the position." Marcus was shocked. "Me? You want me to run Air Global? You've shown incredible leadership throughout this whole situation," Thomas said. "You fought for change, not just for yourself but for everyone. That's exactly the kind of leader we need." Marcus was silent for a moment. The offer was tempting. Running a major airline would be an exciting challenge, but he had built TechFusion from nothing. It was his life's work. "I'm honored," Marcus said finally, "but I think I can do more good where I am. I'll help you find the right person, though." Together, they created a list of qualities the new CEO should have. They wanted someone with a strong track record of building fair and equal workplaces, someone who understood that treating people with respect wasn't just right, it was also good business. After interviewing many candidates, the board selected Linda Hernandez, who had turned around another struggling company by focusing on fair treatment and good service. On her first day, she invited Marcus to Air Global headquarters. "I have big plans," Linda told him. "What happened with your case was terrible, but out of that terrible thing, we have a chance to build something truly great." She showed him blueprints for a completely redesigned training center. "We're calling it the Johnson Center for Service Excellence," she said with a smile. "If that's okay with you." Marcus felt a lump in his throat. "I would be honored," he said. As he left the building, his phone buzzed with a news alert. 2 more major airlines had announced new anti-discrimination initiatives. The change was spreading. 1 year had passed since that flight when Marcus was treated poorly. It was hard to believe how much had changed in just 12 months. Marcus sat in a comfortable first-class seat on an Air Global flight from Chicago to New York. He was traveling to attend the grand opening of the Johnson Center for Service Excellence. The training center would teach all new Air Global employees how to treat every passenger with respect and dignity. The flight attendant, a young man named Miguel, greeted Marcus with a warm smile. "Good afternoon, Mr. Johnson. It's an honor to have you on board. Can I get you something to drink before takeoff?" Marcus asked for water, which came quickly in a real glass, not a plastic cup. He noticed that Miguel treated every passenger with the same friendly respect. The elderly woman across the aisle, the teenager in a hoodie, the businessman in an expensive suit. Everyone received the same excellent service. As the plane took off, Marcus opened his laptop to review his speech for tomorrow's opening ceremony. His phone buzzed with a text from Linda Hernandez, Air Global's CEO. "Just got the new customer satisfaction numbers, highest in company history." Marcus smiled. The changes were working. Air Global had gone from one of the worst-rated airlines to one of the best. Their new slogan, "Equal Skies for All," wasn't just words. They were living it every day. The Airline Equality Group was now monitoring all major airlines in the country. They published monthly reports showing which airlines had the most complaints about discrimination. This public accountability was driving change across the industry. When the plane landed in New York, a surprise was waiting. As Marcus walked into the terminal, he saw a group of people holding signs. "Thank you, Marcus Johnson." They were former Air Global employees who had been fired for reporting discrimination before the changes. Now many had been rehired. Jasmine Taylor, the flight attendant who had first contacted Marcus with evidence, was there too. She was now working as a trainer at the new Johnson Center. "You changed our lives," Jasmine said, hugging Marcus. "You changed an entire industry." The next day, hundreds of people gathered for the opening of the training center. The modern building had classrooms, simulation areas, and a museum section that told the story of how the center came to be. Marcus's story, from discrimination to transformation, was featured prominently. Linda Hernandez introduced Marcus to the crowd. "Sometimes it takes one person standing up for what's right to change the world," she said. Marcus Johnson could have stayed quiet. He could have accepted poor treatment as just the way things are. Instead, he spoke up, not just for himself, but for everyone who had ever been treated unfairly. Marcus stood at the podium, looking out at the faces watching him. He saw Air Global employees, other airline executives, journalists, and many of the people who had joined his lawsuit. "A year ago, I was just a passenger who wanted to be treated with respect," Marcus began. "I never expected to start a movement. I never expected to change an industry. I just knew that staying silent wasn't an option anymore. He paused, thinking about everything that had happened. The easy path is to accept things as they are. The harder path is to stand up and say, "This needs to change." But that harder path leads to better places for everyone. After the ceremony, Marcus toured the new training center. In one classroom, new flight attendants were role-playing different passenger situations. In another, pilots and gate agents were discussing how to make sure everyone felt welcome and respected. As Marcus prepared to leave, Linda handed him an envelope. Inside was his old boarding pass from that flight a year ago. "We framed the original to hang in the center's entrance," she said. "We wanted everyone to see where this journey began." On his flight home, Marcus looked out the window at the clouds below. He thought about how one small moment had led to such big changes. He thought about all the people who would now have better experiences because he had spoken up. Sometimes the most important journeys start with a single step. Sometimes the most powerful words are simply, "This is not right." Marcus Johnson had said those words, and the world had listened.